Hey, Sherry, have I got an echo?
Nope, I'm not.
All right, it is 3:32 and we now have a full crew. So I am going to look to Sherry to get our recording started.
Should it just pop up anytime now? Here we go.
We're good?
Mhm.
All right, well then I will call the St. Paul City Council to order. Roll call.
Yang.
Here.
Jalali.
Here.
Naker.
Here.
Prince.
Here.
Tao.
Here.
Tolbert.
Here.
Council President Brenmon.
Here.
7 present, no one absent.
Please stand and join let Councilmember Tolbert lead us in the pledge today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda items 2 through 12 are before you for your consideration.
Is there anything on consent that should be taken separately? Does not look like it, but I'm actually going to pull item number 6, if that's all right, just for a quick comment on that. And so with item number 6 pulled from consent, Ms. Jalali moves the balance. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The consent agenda is adopted as amended. Item number 6, Resolution 21-807, replacing Resolution 21-547, reaffirming the City Council's regular meeting schedule during the COVID-19 pandemic emergency and setting a date to return to in-person meetings.
And I just wanted to pull this off consent just for just quick comment on this item. We, of course, there's lots of shuffling and shifting around going on today, but with the council meetings, we have obligations to send out public hearing notices and places, and for planning purposes, we needed to set a date for a return to our chambers where we, the council will be in person in council chambers. And that date is the first week in September. We have challenges that other venues may not have, because if we have a public hearing, we have no control over the number of folks who may show up. We don't have an option to turn people away. And so that window of time allows us an opportunity to set our notices to prepare for the full return to work. And the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that we have made a commitment to continue to take testimony virtually. We've had some success with that, and the opportunity to allow people to participate in council meetings while they're at home, while they're with their families, while they're on a trip, while they're in a break from work, is something that we value and want to continue doing going forward. And there is some technical work that still needs to be finished to allow to do that. So we will be back in the council chambers the week following our Labor Day holiday. And we will get to enjoy the new council murals, or the chamber murals that were replaced while we were out. And I think that it will be a fantastic way to step back into this new or to re-step back into in-person meetings. So I just wanted to pull that off. I think it's of note to people who are looking forward to joining us in person as well. So that will be the first week of September. And in the meantime, we will continue to meet virtually. I will add also that the council staff and council members will be working toward a return to work this summer. You'll see us taking meetings from our office, maybe taking meetings in our office with an effort to really start bringing energy and humans back into downtown, enjoying our restaurants and helping our businesses get going again after a long slumber. So we are as modeling that return to work as council members, but again, just holding off on the in-person council meetings. I'm in the chamber until the first week of September. I see Mr. Tolbert and Ms. Jalali have hands up. Mr. Tolbert?
Yeah, thank you for pulling this off so that we can recognize this. I mean, one, I think it's a very thoughtful approach, and I agree with you. And Councilmember Jalali said it really nice this morning, that I hope what we've taken from this is we'll be able to expand and be more inclusive for ways that we can take testimony and for people, citizens, to be involved, not only in person for some, but also either virtually or by email or calls or other ways for people to engage their city council members and the city in general. But also, I think it's important for us to recognize there's been a lot of lifting of restrictions that, in my opinion, were extremely necessary as we've started to get more and more people vaccinated in our community. And I just think it's important for us to recognize how fortunate we are here in St. Paul and, quite frankly, in this country to be able to even be planning for this when we see other countries who don't have the vaccination accessibility that we have in our country. They're not even thinking about this next step yet. And because people are getting vaccinated, obviously, Lori Anderson is on in a little bit. I know that, but obviously we need to get the numbers higher and higher and higher. But it is a pretty amazing thing. And I'm grateful for the scientists in this country that were able to come around something so quickly and produce it. We really are fortunate to be here. And I know a lot of other people across the world would love to have walk-in vaccination options at their fingertips, should they be so lucky. And I hope they get them soon. And I think America should be part of that. But I think we as Americans need to recognize how fortunate we are to have this accessibility and look forward to. I can't wait to see all you guys in person at one point and have a full house, regardless of what the issue is. I'm very looking forward to it. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Tolbert. Ms. Jalali?
Thank you for pulling this off consent, Council President Brenmoen and Councilmember Tolbert for echoing a lot of points I share. I have inquired as of today with our council staff, our administrative staff, about incorporating what we've learned so that there can continue to be accessibility options, so that if and when we return to in-person, we are not excluding folks from being able to participate in public hearings. We know those equity challenges existed before a pandemic. We learned in the pandemic how we can make public participation more accessible. And so I appreciate the support from our staff and around the table here for ensuring that we don't leave people behind as we come back to work. We know that there are vaccine inequities. We know there are disparities in different communities, that communities of color are disproportionately impacted. And we are working to monitor that data and also make sure that we can support folks in participating in a range of ways. So I simply want to offer that to me, this isn't kind of announcing that, we've said it and forget it and see you in September, but rather that this is an intention to proceed with where we're at now while being mindful of the things that we still need to address and how we can incorporate a smart return that is inclusive and continues to be grounded in equity. So I felt it was worth mentioning that and appreciate the efforts underway to do that.
Thank you. I am glad I pulled it off. There's lots to unpack there, and it's important. I know we're all looking forward to it, and I appreciate the acknowledgement that we're doing this in a thoughtful and inclusive way. So thanks. I will take that as a motion then from Ms. Jalali. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item 13 is the update on COVID-19 vaccinations.
Great, and I believe I saw Ms. Anderson ready to present. Welcome, Ms. Anderson. Thank you for being here.
I am glad to be here. And if it's all right with you guys, I'm going to go ahead and share a presentation. So
Sounds good.
one moment. Okay, can you
Success.
go ahead and see my, oh,
Yep.
good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with this group on a monthly basis because there's always something to talk about. Just a few of the highlights that I prepped slides for this afternoon. An FYI that our federal state fairgrounds site is ending as of June 8th. They met their 8-week commitment and have serviced a lot of St. Paul residents. I've actually asked for a summary document, which I'm looking forward to providing you all next week. The EUA for Pfizer was approved for kiddos as young as 12, so long as they have a parent or guardian permission. That's excellent news for us. It opens up a new audience for vaccine who clearly is also at risk, and we are excited to be integrating Pfizer clinics into our existing offerings, along with Moderna and Johnson & Johnson Janssen. On the data side, we have seen pretty dramatic declines in terms of our positivity rates, caseloads, hospitalization. I will share those slides with you briefly. Other news of note, very timely in fact, our governor of Minnesota did end the mask mandate about 3 weeks ago. Minneapolis went ahead and did so yesterday, and the city of St. Paul today. I will share a little bit more about what we're doing alongside our race equity and community engagement response team to push out more good information and access to vaccines over the summer months. And then finally, I'm just going to share a little bit about the governor's rewards program for individuals receiving their first dose of vaccine in June. So yeah, just to kick off here, I know a number of you were excellent advocates for expanding zip codes to be able to receive vaccine at the fairgrounds site. They've gotten very amenable in terms of walk-ins. They've also really done a good service to us in terms of providing low or no barrier access to vaccines. So we are grateful for that federal push. And, we recognize they have other activities they need to get back to. So that state fairground site will be closing on June 8th. That does not mean, however, that the local health department will be winding down in terms of our vaccine offerings. I will go ahead and send this to you in a spreadsheet format because I think it's a little difficult to read. But as you can see, these are just the clinic offerings within the city of St. Paul. A good representation in terms of days, times, and vaccines, as well as mostly heading toward a walk-in model. So a lot of opportunities to get that vaccine without having an appointment, without having to put your information anywhere online or call someone before heading over and getting that shot. So we're excited about that. We're doing a wholesale revamp of our county website just to make sure that folks understand exactly where they can get a vaccine. This also includes a new location at Arlington Hills Community Center. We are excited to launch that particular vaccine clinic every Sunday in conjunction with St. Paul Parks and Rec, as well as other partners at the city. That particular vaccine clinic will be running every Sunday, noon until 4 throughout the summer months. So it's a nice option for folks, in that neighborhood. Now I want to just bring your attention. This is a very long overview, but you can really see the impact of that increasing number of residents getting vaccine here. We anticipated seeing some higher numbers of cases in the spring, and I think we might have had we not had access to vaccine. So I'm impressed at how vaccine has supported us in suppressing transmission of COVID-19 disease. We intend to obviously keep track and monitor this data, over time, along with other metrics, which I will share next. Taking a look at positivity. So just a reminder, this measure basically describes who tests positive among individuals seeking testing. So if you never seek testing, you wouldn't show up in this metric, right? But again, we're seeing a really nice decline in terms of tests that read as positive here in Ramsey County. These are encouraging numbers to see. Lastly, taking a look at that hospital data. I would point to you, the purple line is the one to look at. These are individuals across all metro jurisdictions and who were hospitalized because of a COVID-19 diagnosis. And again, you see really nice declines in terms of the number of individuals who need to be hospitalized, or admitted to a hospital or seeking intensive care. Those numbers have lowered really nicely. And of course, that brings me to an announcement. I'm sure you saw the press release from the city of St. Paul earlier today. We are going to continue to monitor COVID-19 transmission, but we recognize that St. Paul is not an island, right? So as the rest of our municipalities go ahead and lift that mask mandate, it makes sense for us to go ahead and join them. We are doing specific targeted outreach and vaccine clinics in a couple of zip codes where we feel we have, lagging uptake. And I think that's going to be really important for us to sustain across the summer months. I just got some new numbers from the State Department of Health. I think the information in the press release said, one zip code was at 52% uptake, but now they're at 53%. So we're seeing those numbers steadily increase. I don't want this to be seen as discouraging. I think what this shows is we have some work ahead of us. But, again, we will continue to monitor a number of different metrics to make sure that we're doing the right thing in terms of reducing mitigation measures at this time.
Ms. Anderson, it looks like Councilmember Naker has a question.
Absolutely, I understand.
Thanks, Council President. Thanks, Ms. Anderson. I always appreciate your presentations. And I just wanted to ask you on this slide, when the governor lifted the statewide mask mandate and Minneapolis and St. Paul hadn't lifted ours yet, I did get a number of questions from constituents about why ours was still on the books. And they were questions I frankly wasn't able to answer. I didn't know what metrics we were tracking or what percentages we were looking for in order to lift that. And so I feel like I've gotten a little bit of clarity over the last few hours, but can you speak a bit to what this was? 55%? Has that been our goal for a while, and that was what we were waiting to get to? What does 55% mean in terms of why is that number significant? I'd love to just better understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 55%, right, is what I would call an initial goal in terms of residents who are 16 or older who've received at least that first shot. And we wanted to go down into that zip code level so that we could really make minute adjustments to where we place clinics, how we do outreach, where we translate materials. So these were goals that we established internally for use as we pushed forward on vaccine distribution. We did consult with the city of Minneapolis on their metrics. The reality is there's a lot of data to look at, right? Choosing one metric like vaccine uptake is perhaps not an advisable goal, right? We want to take a look at the whole picture of what's happening around us. And it's vaccine uptake, but it also does include things like hospitalization, positivity, and caseload as well. And I'm sorry, it's tough. These goals were not produced in the shadows. They were shared in conjunction with epidemiologists at the state level and with other metro partners. But we're doing our best right now just to make sure that we can roll back safely. So that's what I would say.
I appreciate that. And just as a quick follow-up, I mean, it would be great, since you are giving us monthly updates, to be able to know, what our next goal is percentage-wise, and why that's our goal. I'm still not sure I know, why 55%, what that means in terms of transmission, et cetera. But it would just be helpful to have that information so we can respond when we get asked what I think are good questions from constituents.
Absolutely. I will get that to you. Yeah.
Mr. Tao.
Thank you, Council President. Ms. Anderson, can you explain the difference between Minneapolis with the 75% threshold, and then why are we 55 and there's that 20% gap? Can you explain that part?
Well, so what I can share with you is Minneapolis looked at averages. So they wanted to assure that on average, every zip code was able to meet that 75% mark. We went for a more detailed look at that zip code or census tract level, which makes it a little bit more challenging for us to meet that measure quickly. Does that help? I will say on average in Ramsey County, about 73% of our residents have received at least their first shot. So we're getting up there.
Okay, and so let's go back to the 55% there on our side. What is the breakdown of the 55%? Like, how many percent of that is people of color? How many percent of that is white, and the different ages? Because we know that COVID has affected people of color differently, and so I think it's important for us to know out of that 55%. What those aggregated data are, right? So that we can, so that this could be a equitable approach. Whereas, hey, 55%, we're good to go, but the people that really need the vaccination aren't really getting it.
Yeah, I understand. So I do know that we have about 29,000 residents to reach within these particular zip codes. Based on just, general demographic information, I would assume that a lot of the individuals in these communities who have not yet received their first dose are young families working multiple jobs. So that's a reason why I would argue they haven't been able to access vaccine yet. This gives us more traction in terms of offering vaccine on weekends and evenings. I will go ahead. I've been asked this question a couple times around disaggregated data, and we've been doing some kind of retrospective work looking at how we can better approach race and ethnicity. So I will make sure that that's included in next month's presentation.
Okay, and then here you said that, let me see here, that any day now, in a couple of days here, it will meet our 55% threshold. And is that going to be public information?
Yes. We will be tracking vaccine uptake at the zip code level on our county dashboard. We have a couple of maps available, so we've just been making some final touches to them. But yeah, that will be information that is accessible to the public.
Yeah, I think like these are really good information, and I would really appreciate them beforehand versus getting these information now and through press releases that we're taking these action. And I also saw that in the one of the papers says that we are eliminating the mayor is getting rid of the mask mandate because Minneapolis is doing it, and I just don't think that's that by itself is not a good reason to do it. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Tao. And just I don't disagree with what you said. And for the record, we did today request a report from administration about the mask mandate and what were the guideposts we were going to be using and benchmarks to make decisions going forward. And then this changed overnight. So, but that was, I think, in an effort to understand what the decision-making process was and when we would be, how and when we would be making changes to that. So I appreciate your comments, and just to let you know, we did have that request out as well. Ms. Yang.
Thanks, Council President. And Councilmember Tao, I really appreciate your questions, especially in like looking deeper into what these percentages mean, because Laura, I want to share with you, like, I feel like that disaggregated information should be collected beforehand. I hope that it is. And if it isn't, then it really feels like equity is an afterthought, and that, we actually should be making our decisions with the equitable data that we have already collected. And so it was really, I just felt really flustered today, like finding out about the mask mandate being lifted in St. Paul through a reporter from NPR prior to the press release. And so just really talks about this, it goes to show like how backwards, things are in St. Paul right now, and that we really need to do better for our communities, especially the people who are hurting the most. And that's, folks of color, people from working class families, and people who are living in poverty right now. And so my question to you is, I know you mentioned you'll get us information about how many people, how many St. Paul residents got vaccinated through the St. Paul, Minnesota State Fair site. Can you also provide us information on how many people in St. Paul are vaccinated also?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I will make sure that you get that by the close of business tomorrow. Yeah.
Awesome. And I really hope you are hearing like the call from us to really break down data and like collect data that is meaningful, because we're hearing over and over again, like these are, the concerns that folks have and we have as well. And it seems like, we have the same conversation. And so let's, do the work, collect that data, and do work that is even more meaningful for folks.
Yeah, we've started collecting better race and ethnicity data on our existing screening forms for our clinics, but that doesn't help us when we think about the larger shift around health systems more generally and how they're collecting more disaggregated data. And so that's a question that we've brought a couple of times to our partners at the state, and we're hoping to get to a better answer in the future, because clearly there are differences here, and we want to make sure that our outreach strategies are nuanced enough to accommodate them.
Great. Thank you. It looks like we are good to continue going forward at the moment.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, taking a look at those measures, understanding where we are in terms of our access to vaccine, I want to just briefly give you guys some good information about a program that our Racial Equity and Community Engagement Response Team is currently in the process of building and establishing. So in conjunction with our communications team, we are going to be pushing better and more targeted messages out to our residents. We will also actually be equipping our Trusted Messenger program with tools and resources so that they can continue to have those conversations with neighbors and friends around the importance of vaccine and really help refer them to a local clinic. As we've discussed at this meeting, sometimes the way to get to yes in terms of a vaccine is to have a conversation with someone you trust, as opposed to a government person. So I'm excited about that program effort, and I'm also glad to see a specific push from the governor's office This is an incentive program. It's not like the one that you'll find in West Virginia. You can Google that on your own if you'd like. But this is a nice incentive program because it gives individuals some choice. After you receive your vaccine, you go onto this website. I've included the URL there. And you can actually choose from a number of different incentives, including like a $25 Visa gift card, fishing licenses, tickets to the state fair. There's a number of different incentives to choose from. So I'm looking forward to being able to promote that incentive program, as well as I think continuing to hear from our community around ways to help them, access vaccine. It may not be an incentive. It may be something more like transportation. But so those are my highlights for today. I'm sure there are additional questions, and I have been taking some notes so that I can respond to some of the questions, or all of the questions that I heard today. So anything further that I can share?
I'm looking to see if there are questions. Sometimes we ask them along the road. So appreciate the clarification, and especially as it pertains to, you are St. Paul and Ramsey County Public Health, and so taking questions specifically about St. Paul, I appreciate that. Especially as I was mentioning, we were looking for a report on the mask mandate today, and then things changed. So we appreciate your stepping in and answering the questions and taking the heat on that one. Anything else for Ms. Anderson on our monthly check-in? All right. Thank you very much once again for your leadership and your efforts here. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Item number 14 is Resolution 21-836, proclaiming Saturday, June 5th through Saturday, June 12th, to be Neighbor Works Week in the city of St. Paul.
All right. And I believe I'm looking at you, Mr. Tao, to kick this off. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Tao.
Thank you, Council President. And I have here Mr. Jason Peterson here as well. NeighborWorks is a great organization, in my experience, working with them across St. Paul. They work in other suburbs around the St. Paul as well. When Mr. Peterson came on board, he was always at every community event, having conversation, bringing the tools of NeighborWorks to introduce into the neighborhood. And what they do is they provide affordable housing, new construction housing at affordable price, loans, grants. And I personally have made referral to friends and neighbors and folks who are in hard time to give NeighborWorks a call. So this is a great honor to honor them and for them to be a great partner with the city of St. Paul and the district council. Mr. Peterson, I'd like to turn this over, and will you share some of the exciting stuff that you're doing to my colleague, and love to hear more about other things that you're doing as well.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Councilmember Tao, Council President Brenmo, and the entire City Council for sponsoring this important resolution and having me here today to speak about our 4 decades of work. And thank you for recognizing NeighborWorks Week here in St. Paul. NeighborWorks Week is a celebration of community, a recognition that when neighbors work together, they can build communities that are stronger, more resilient, and more equitable for everyone. Our organization started with an idea and a dream. Residents of the west side of St. Paul wanted to create a local organization to make affordable home improvement financing available to their neighbors. That was in 1981. At that time, we were known as West Side Neighborhood Housing Services. We made our first loan for $5,319.65 to help a family make repairs to a house on East Curtis Street there on the west side. Since that first loan, we've grown our mission to supporting homeownership at every stage all across St. Paul. Through the years, we've changed our name from West Side NHS to Community NHS, and then after merging with Greater Frogtown CDC, we became NeighborWorks Home Partners. This growth has allowed us the opportunity to work more closely with many communities all across St. Paul. We now help over 1,000 families each year with resources such as homebuyer education, down payment assistance, single-family housing development, home repairs, and when times get tough, foreclosure prevention. As we build for the future, we continue to grow homeownership among communities that have historically been denied participation in our housing market. The importance of successful homeownership cannot be understated. Not only is homeownership a primary wealth generator and the most effective way to end generational poverty, it also has many non-financial benefits such as improved school involvement and civic engagement. Our goal is to eliminate the racial disparities in homeownership, which unfortunately are prevalent within our city. 2/3 of all the families that we work with are BIPOC households. Throughout our history, we've been proud to partner with the City of St. Paul. This includes administering home repair loans using CDBG dollars through the capital improvement budget process to deploy these resources to our neighborhoods all across the city. We have done this continually since 1981. This also includes rehabilitating dilapidated homes or building new homes on vacant lots all across the city and selling them to low to moderate income families. And through our partnership with NeighborWorks America and our ability to leverage additional funding, these investments multiply. Just in our most recent fiscal year alone, this resulted in over $51 million of total investment into our community. I could list off more numbers, but what we know that is really important in our work, it's about the individuals. So I just want to tell a couple of stories about the people whose dreams we've supported. So a widow in Rondo who couldn't get financing to repair her duplex's plumbing because her late husband's health care had left a lien against the property. We were able to make the repairs, preserve her home and the affordable unit she rented to her tenant. A single mother in Frogtown whose roof was on the verge of collapsing under the heavy snow of a Minnesota winter. We were able to provide a new roof, siding, and insulation to make her home to a place she wants to stay forever. Just this past year, a gentleman who participated in our homebuyer education and used our down payment assistance to become the first person in his family to own a home, a spacious duplex right in the heart of Rondo. Stories like these are a reminder that what we do every day and have been doing for the last 40 years does make a difference in people's lives, and these stories together build a stronger community. So I want to thank you all for celebrating the stories of our neighbors with us as we observe NeighborWorks Week.
Thank you so much, Mr. Peterson. We appreciate the report. I know when I originally started working with you, we don't have a CDC that's functioning in the North End community in St. Paul. And you stepped right up to the plate to help us establish a North End home ownership, home renovation program. And the work that you've done there has been incredible. The organization, I know whenever we have updates at the District 6 annual meeting, it's really jaw-dropping the number of lives that you've impacted with your work, just particularly in that neighborhood where the work wasn't happening. So I appreciate the leadership on bringing the NeighborWorks. I like it that it's a week, not just a day. We're not going to be satisfied with just one day over here. We're going to do a week for NeighborWorks Home Partners. I think it's great, and the opportunity to hear from you is wonderful. I have colleagues with hands up that wanted to chime in. So I see Ms. Naker and then Ms. Yang.
Thanks, Council President. And Jason, thank you so much for being here. I am thrilled to be co-sponsoring this resolution, and I'm so grateful for everything you do for the community. And I don't think I knew the origin story of NeighborWorks until today. And so I'm both so pleased that, of course, it came from the West Side, but also I think it's so moving and inspiring the way that it started with a $5,000 loan to one family and has grown to 1,000. I think there's so much to be learned from that, the work that we do every day and the work that community members come to do every day that sometimes seems so hopeless and the road seems so long, and knowing that many of the things that we, that are established institutions today that we sort of take for granted started that way. So, so thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Ms. Yang.
Thank you. I would also like to say thank you for your work as well. I'm literally looking at the email that I got from NeighborWorks it was in February. And to see that you all came back to us and told us a recap of the work that you did in 2020 is just like really moving. And you also like broke that down to, hey, this is how many families of color we served as well. And so I'm deeply grateful for you and am co-sponsoring this, and also really looking forward to all the progress that will come in the future as well. So keep up the amazing work.
Thank you.
Thanks. And I'm just looking to make sure there's no other comments here before we, we'll have to vote to make it official, right? Okay. All right. So we are proclaiming the June 5th to June 12th NeighborWorks Week in the city of St. Paul. And that's a motion by Mr. Tao. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted.
Thank you all so much for your support, and I look forward to our continued success in the future.
Item 15 is Resolution 21-835, declaring the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day.
All right. And I'm looking to see who's got a hand up that's leading on this. Okay, Ms. Prince. Ms. Prince.
Thank you. We have a guest today who I will introduce, but first I'd like to just read some of the key portions of the resolution that is before us. I will not read the whole thing, but just the parts that will make this all come to life for us. Whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to exacerbate gun violence after more than a year of increased gun sales, increased calls to suicide and domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in city youth gun violence. And whereas since 2013, the first Friday in June has been recognized as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in memory of Hadia Pendleton, who was tragically shot and killed at age 15 in January of that year, just 1 week after performing at events for the second inauguration of President Barack Obama. And whereas on that day, people across the United States will recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day by wearing orange, the color that keeps us safe in the woods, symbolic of the value of human life. In tribute to Hadia Pendleton and far too many victims of gun violence that we have lost and their loved ones. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on Friday, June 4th, the first Friday in June in 2021, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all that we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children and our communities safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of St. Paul declares the first Friday in June, June 4th, 2021, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day and expresses our strong support and gratitude to all the individuals and organizations working across St. Paul to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. And I'd like to introduce our special guest today, Dawn Einwalter, who is a Hamlin Midway Ward 4 resident, and she is representing the St. Paul chapter of Moms Demand Action and is also a board member of Protect Minnesota. Dawn, we'd love to have you share a few words. And you're on mute.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilmember Prince, for reading that. And thank you also for all of the council members who have sponsored this. How do I make, am I visible? Can you confirm that that's all right? Thank you so much. I just want to say that we encourage you to promote this because I'm so sorry. This event honors the survivors of gun violence as well as the victims. And as we have learned in the past year, there is not only an importance of addressing gun violence, but also of comforting people who have been affected by this. And that is a primary means for this event. But the City of St. Paul has also taken some steps forward to address gun violence in the city. And I see this as one aspect of that. For example, it's the Citizens United work on Community First and the possible public safety department that the city is considering is one of many elements to addressing gun violence. And so I feel that this is important both in terms of action and in terms of visibility. You're creating a path forward that people can see both here and in the city and in other communities as well. I mean, people are watching what St. Paul is doing and looking to us for guidance on this issue. And this is one aspect of that. I also want to encourage you from a personal standpoint. I live with an adult with severe mental illness, and I have learned a great deal from coming in contact with this kind of event where, for example, specific aspects of gun safety I would not have known were it not for being able to access events like this. So I would just like to say thank you, and please do consider accepting this resolution.
And Dawn, Jane Prince again, I just want to thank you so much for being here with us today, and to let you know that how deeply we appreciate the work of both Moms Demand Action and Protect Minnesota. We had a policy session a couple of months ago where Merritt Brock from Moms Demand Action participated in a really meaningful discussion about efforts and policies in St. Paul to reduce gun violence and to keep our communities safe. And the work that you as advocates are doing in the community is making such a big difference for us. So thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Tao.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Councilmember Prince, for putting this forward. I know we got a lot of sponsor in this, and I'm really thankful for this because, gun violence in this country is really become a health issue, and it doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in or what race you are. It affects all of us, from domestic violence to street gang shooting, and what. A couple of weeks ago, with that little girl up in North Minneapolis, she could be the next, astronaut that go to Mars, or the person that find a cure for cancer, and we'll never know that because someone shot and they didn't have to, and they took a life away. And so, and every night, almost every night in Frogtown where I live, there's shots fired. Big gun, little gun, all different types of gun, AR. And I mean, how do you explain that to your kids? How do you say to a justice or Aiden that said, we got to go back, we got to go inside the house. It's dark and there's those are gunshots, And I feel like that's the kind of world we live in if we are out in some war-torn country or some place that's not the United States. But in fact, it is the United States. And so there's a lot of work that we have to do. And, I hope that our federal leaders and DC can work hard and work with us and to put a curb on these gun violence. So, thank you to all my colleagues and the folks out there that's working to reduce gun violence.
Thank you, Mr. Tao. And, as we are, gun violence is an issue that we are painfully aware of every day, as you mentioned, and it is, I appreciate the opportunity to check in about what our role as leaders in this country and what we're doing to go upstream and make a difference here and to recognize the advocates who do this work every day. So I do appreciate this angle of gun violence awareness where we're acknowledging the work that we're doing and the incredible amount of work yet to come. So I would take a motion from Ms. Prince. I need discussion on that motion. All right, seeing none, roll call.
Yang. Aye. Jalali.
Aye.
Nager.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted.
Councilmember Naker moves suspension of the rules. Roll call.
Yang. Aye. Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. Rules are suspended. Resolution 21-852, affirming the extension of declaration of local emergency issued June 1st, 2021 by Mayor Melvin Carter III.
All right, and this item comes into us under suspension, as is the case when we have 3 days to vote on it, and an emergency order from the mayor. So for folks who are just getting an opportunity to look at it right now, this is drafted as a 90-day extension, both to address what's left of the pandemic and giving us some time to recover. We're not locked into those 90 days. That is something that the council can discuss, but it seems, especially given the conversation that we just had about vaccinations, the extensions that we've had with our business flexibility and other things that we have done during the pandemic. This is what is in front of us is just the 90-day extension of the emergency order. So if there's is there any discussion on this item? Okay, great. I will take a motion from Ms. Yang, then a roll call.
Yang. Aye. Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item 16 is first reading of ordinance 21-20, creating chapter 233A of the Legislative Code to establish certain rights for hospitality workers who have suffered loss of employment due to the COVID-19 pandemic to return to work with their previous employer.
All right, that's fairly self-explanatory, but this is first reading. Is there council members who need a staff report on this item? All right, seeing none, we will lay the matter over for 1 week to public hearing.
Yes, the second reading public hearing will be on June 9th. Item 17 is also first reading of ordinance 21-21, repealing chapter 193 of the Legislative Code related to tenant protections.
All right, and this is also before us for first reading staff report. Folks need a summary of what is in front of us today.
Council President Brenmoen, this is
Yes.
Rachel Tierney.
Yes.
I've been asked to speak for the city attorney's office. As you know, the city received a federal lawsuit from a landlord group that challenged our SAFE ordinance. They filed a motion to enjoin the enforcement of that ordinance in its entirety. In April, we received an order from a federal court granting that injunction. Essentially, that injunction suspended the operation of the ordinance pending the outcome of a lawsuit. We've had several meetings with you all as individuals and a closed session as a group to discuss the impact of the court's decision And so this ordinance is now before you to consider repeal.
All right, and that is a staff report. There, it will be an opportunity for people to weigh in either by email or transcribed phone messages if they would like to weigh in on this item. It's something that none of us are happy about or looking forward to, but we will discuss at public hearing as well as then final vote on third reading. Any discussion before Ms. Jalali?
Thank you. I am awaiting the public hearing, and I recognize that this is being brought as part of litigation that the city is involved with. So I actually prefer to let the public hearing proceed and that we will receive comment. And I have been already receiving messages and calls, and I think it is just important to say as we bring this forward that none of us can back down from our responsibility to continue fighting for renters in any avenue, even as that battle presents new fronts. I have heard from colleagues a commitment to that. I believe our community will hold us to that. And I think it is important to reaffirm our commitment to that at every stage, including something that can feel like a routine reading like this one, where we bring forward an item. And for me personally, this is deeply important and gravely serious. And I will continue to show that in any way I can through my actions and work on this issue. But I wanted to speak to that because the community and the community partners that we spent years developing policy with have poured their heart and soul into making sure that we have fair housing in our city. And it is only right that that they are seen and heard and respected. And I will continue to do everything in my power to fight in honor of that work.
Ms. Yang.
Thanks. I just have a clarifying question because I was asked, like, when does the council decide on when our public hearings are like live by people calling in or not? Because I know in the past, like, we have had some people call in as well. So do our council staff, like, can you share the process in which we decide that?
Who are you asking?
Maybe Sherry might know, Sherry or Marcia.
We take our direction from the council.
Okay.
Yeah, and Ms. Tierney, we've been consistent in when we had a community impact statement on some items. We have had public hearings where they're required by the law on acts of like takings and other items. And we will be going back to a full typical council schedule in the first week of September. Ms. Tierney can, that we do have that available to us, the list of what we have established as our public hearings and which items we're taking as online or over the phone.
Yeah, Council President Brenmo and council members, the practice of the council during the pandemic has generally been to allow testimony for individuals that have a due process right in the decision that the council is about to make. So building teardowns, license revocations, things of that nature. That's really been the practice of the council during the pandemic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yang. And other comments? And I appreciate Ms. Jalali's comment about the reading, on important topics when we do a reading and then lay it over for the public hearing. In our old process, there would have been 2 before we would have gotten to a public hearing. So this is part of the reason why we made those changes for staff report today to raise awareness of the issue, and then for public input on our second reading and a vote on our third. So I think there's some sense there to the approach that we're taking on this item. And also recognize that it's people are paying attention and want to understand what is in front of them. So I appreciate your comments as well. So this item also will be laid over 1 week to public hearing.
Yes, the second reading public hearing will be held on June 9th. Item 18 is resolution public hearing 21-124, amending the financing and spending plans of the Department of Parks and Recreation in the amount of $16,300 to reflect additional 2021 funding expected from Como Friends.
All right, and this item has held public hearing virtually. As such, Ms. Jalali would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenman.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 19, Resolution Public Hearing 21-127, approving the application to Avalon School for a sound level variance in order to present live amplified sound on June 10th at 525 Pelham Boulevard.
Right, this public hearing's been held virtually. As such, Ms. Jalali moves to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenman.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 20 is Resolution Public Hearing 21-132, approving the application of OSP Events LLC for a sound level variance in order to present live amplified sound on June 10th and 17th, July 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th, August 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th, September 2nd and 9th at 221 5th Street East, Mears Park.
All right, this public hearing has been held virtually. As such, Ms. Naker moves to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Naker.
Thanks, Council President. I just wanted to not let this one pass without pointing out that it is a lot of dates, which means a lot of fun in Lower Town. This is sort of a bland title, but it's really Lower Town Sounds, which is coming back to Lower Town after a year's hiatus. And it's just so exciting to see this event returning. So I hope everyone will grab a blanket and join us in Lower Town many, many Thursdays this summer. And many thanks to Clint Roberts and One Simple Plan for sticking with it during a tough year and bringing this back to us.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenman.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 21, Ordinance 21-17, granting the application of Ali Alfredi to rezone property at 444 Maryland Avenue West from B1 Local Business District to T2 Traditional Neighborhood and amending Chapter 60 of the Legislative Code pertaining to the zoning map.
All right, and this item is before us for a public hearing. We've held the public hearing virtually. I do want to draw my colleagues' attention to the attachments. There are groupings of public comments that were received as part of Planning Commission's hearings and meetings. The amount of input we received from community members in various languages and from various socioeconomic backgrounds is profound and worth noting. If you can find time to read that before our final vote next week, I will have some comments to make on this troubled property at this location at that time, but I just wanted, when I noticed today, I saw that a lot of the public comments were grouped together under one heading, and it doesn't show the vast number of people who took the time and made the effort to communicate with us. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that, and I would move to close the public hearing. Any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, roll call.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenman.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the ordinance is laid over to June 9th for final adoption. Item 22, excuse me. Ordinance 21-18, granting the application of Stonewood Investments LLC to rezone property at 300 Banfield Street, 149, 155 Dowsman Street rezone from B2 community business to RM2 medium density multiple family residential, and amending Chapter 60 of the Legislative Code pertaining to the zoning map.
Right, and this item has had a public hearing held virtually, and again, seeing the attachments as and expecting that some items are under one heading as well in this item. And as such, Ms. Naker would move to close the public hearing. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the ordinance is laid over to June 9th for final adoption. The legislative hearing officer recommends adoption of the following items, as no objections to these recommendations were received. Item 23, RLH BBR 21-29, 474 Blair Avenue. Item 25, RLH BBR 21-30, 596 Charles. Item 27, RLH TA 20-536, 913 Earl Street. Item 29, RLH TA 21-263, 942 Gaultier Street. Item 30, RLH TA 20-539, 987 Geranium Avenue East. Item 31, RLH BBR 21-28, 1204 Grand Avenue. Item 32, RLH TA 21-222, 62 Hatch Avenue. Item 33, RLH BO 21-16, 2245 Hillsdale Avenue. Item 34, RLH TA 21-217, 900 and 902 Jenks Avenue. Item 35, RLH TA 20-538, 1304 Juneau Avenue. Item 37, RLH TA 21-241, 876 Lawson Avenue East. Item 39, RLH CO 21-4, 859 Marion Street. Item 40, RLH TA 21-264, 1120 Payne Avenue. Item 41, RLH TA 20-533, 1097 Suburban Avenue. Item 42, RLH TA 21-235, 1080 Thomas Avenue. Item 43, RLH BBR 21-27, 1399 Thomas Avenue. Item 44, RLH TA 21-253, 981 University Avenue West. Item 46, RLH TA 20-527, 970 Western Avenue North. Item 47, RLH AR 20-119, Emergency Boarding Services. Item 48, RLH AR 20-120, Securing Air Emergency Boarding Services. Item 49, RLH AR 20-121, Dangerous Tree Removal Services. Item 52, RLH AR 21-43, Property Cleanup Services. And item 53, RLH AR 21-44, also Property Cleanup Services. And the motion is to adopt these items.
All right. I always smile when they say dangerous tree removal. There's something about that expression, and I think it must be the ginkgos that are particularly dangerous. So moved by Mr. Tolbert. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are closed and the resolutions are adopted. For the following items, no objection to the legislative hearing officer's amended recommendations were received, and therefore she recommends amendment and adoption. Item 36, RLH TA 20-535, 578 LaFond Avenue. Item 38, RLH TA 20-530, 95 Litchfield Street. Item 50, RLH AR 20-123, Property Cleanup Services. And item 51, RLH AR 20-124, also Property Cleanup Services. And the motion is to amend and adopt these items.
All right, so moved by Mr. Tao. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are closed and the resolutions are adopted as amended. For the following items, the legislative hearing officer's recommendation is to continue the public hearing to the dates I'll note. Item 24, RLH TA 21-206, 750 Blair Avenue, October 13th. And item 45, RLH TA 21-176, 553 Van Buren Avenue, October 6th. And the motion is to continue the public hearings to those dates.
So moved by Mr. Tao. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are continued to those dates noted. For the following item, the legislative hearing officer's recommendation is to refer to the legislative hearing. Item 26, RLH SAO 21-40, 1450 Dale Street North to June 22nd. So the motion is to refer to the legislative hearing on June 22nd.
All right, and that, which item number was that?
That was group 4, item 26, and you are the answer.
All right, so moved by me, by Brenmon. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is referred to the June 22nd legislative hearing. For the following item, the legislative hearing officer's recommendation is contested and additional testimony from the appellant is in the record. Item 28, RLH SAO 20-40, 2233 Energy Park Drive, and we have a staff report.
Good afternoon, Ms. Mormond.
Good afternoon, Council President Brenmo and council members. This is a situation where you're following up on a previous order that was issued and decided upon. A summary abatement order was issued on September 3rd of 2020 with a compliance date of September 17th of 2020. It was to remove boulders from the public right-of-way at 2233 Energy Park Drive. I will show you just quickly. Here is an image of some of the boulders that are in the public right-of-way. And if you can give me a little grace here, there is another angle of additional boulders in the right-of-way. They are located in several locations along this roadway, along the corners. And there's another boulder. So those boulders constitute a nuisance condition, and therefore the summary abatement order, which could be known as a summary nuisance abatement order, was issued. The council heard this case actually in January of 2021. We went back and forth with it for a while trying to problem solve it. And the crux of it was that the owner was arguing that these boulders did not constitute a nuisance, and a number of arguments were presented that these were not a nuisance, they were serving another kind of a purpose there. And that then becomes a discussion with Public Works about whether or not this encroachment into the right of way is a nuisance. The council did find on the 13th that it was a nuisance and that the boulders should be removed by May 1st. As is our practice, on May 4th, I followed up to make a finding on your behalf about whether or not those boulders had been removed. They had not been removed according to the staff report. The owners of the property repeated the arguments that they made earlier about the importance of having the boulders present, and they added additional arguments to their case. Those were presented in the minutes that you have from the hearings, as well as the additional correspondence that you received last Wednesday afternoon. I did ask Public Works to comment on those that correspondence, so you have the benefit of their analysis of the reasoning for the boulders from the owner's perspective. Those are really Public Works kinds of discussions. Without them being allowed in the right of way, that is a nuisance. There was no change. My recommendation is is that the council make a finding that the nuisance condition continues to exist, and to authorize the Department of Safety and Inspections to remove the boulders after June 30th. So basically to grant the month of June to the owner to remove the boulders.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mormond. Ms. Jalali, do you have a question for Ms. Mormond?
Yeah, as a clarifying point, thank you, Ms. Mormon, for your work on this and for playing back previous actions on it. Is there in the public record, or could you share for the public record now, the stated reasons given for why the boulders are there? I think that is relevant to the broader issues we need to address, even if this is a specific matter regarding right of way. And I think that is important context to acknowledge and is part of the dynamics here.
Okay, I can highlight at kind of a high level why I think the best resource, and I know you've had a chance to look at, is the owner's own arguments. So I don't want to say that I'm making an argument on their behalf, but I will try to give what I was hearing. Originally, what I was hearing in the photos that were provided had to do with vehicles driving over the grass that was planted in the boulevard area. So there were photos of tire tracks, for example, over the grass, and that the boulevard grass was being damaged without the benefit of having the boulders there. Also heard a fair bit about the layout of the road at that point being poorly done, and that Ramsey County's Public Works engineering wasn't very good, and that the layout was improved by the presence of the boulders in the right of way, and the safety was improved by that. Public Works, of course, did have a different opinion on that. Most recently, there were arguments presented that the owner believed that the boulders presented safety for pedestrians if they're present, that vehicles were less likely to drive onto the sidewalk and hit a pedestrian if there were boulders present between the roadway and the sidewalk. Public Works, again, did analyze those.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was saying thank you. And also that I did have a follow-up that the issue at hand in this case also is that while this is happening in a stretch of road that is a county road, that there is a city right of way within the same exact section of road, correct? Could you remind me again and us again of that piece of it?
This is a county road. The city right of way is between the curb and the sidewalk. And that is the city right of way, for lack of a better way to describe it. It does belong to the private property owner, but it is the path that the public may cross your property on. Anyone can walk down the sidewalk. Anyone at all. You as a private property owner own that sidewalk. You're responsible for shoveling that sidewalk. You don't have to pay taxes on the sidewalk, but it is on the property description and you do own it. So the same thing applies here. The city has a right to have the public pass through it. The city has the right to have power lines pass through it. The city has the right to do passage through it and to regulate the kinds of things that can go in it. In this case, boulders can't go in it. Plantings over a certain height that block the view of tricycles, for example, couldn't go in it. So this would be one of the items that would be in the code that you just couldn't have in there. And Public Works, specifically, actually, the operations manager did meet several times, and you have a nice long email analysis from her in your record on this.
Thank you. If others don't have questions, I can, I'll wait.
Are there any other questions from Ms. Mormond? Mr. Tao.
Thank you, Council President. Ms. Mormon, I was just, and I think you clarified it earlier. I was wondering if I mean, the ordinance here is pretty clear, right? What we can have on the right of way and what we can't. And so have anyone reach out to the property owner and ask them, do they really just need help removing that stuff from folks? Because I look at those boulder and I think somebody can use that stuff in their yard too, landscaping. That's not in the right of way. So I think maybe that's something that we can post to the property owner.
This is one of the largest property owners and property managing companies in the city of St. Paul. I think that they have the resources at hand to be able to manage this particular situation.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Mr. Tao. Are there any other questions from Ms. Mormond?
I would just like to offer to that point to Councilmember Tao that my staff has reached out and been in very close communication with this property owner and been out to the site multiple times and been working on aspects like that, including the most recent round of figuring out the logistics of removal. So thank you.
Any other questions from Ms. Mormond? All right, seeing none, Ms. Jalali.
Thank you. Well, thank you for bringing this back, and thank you, Ms. Mormon, for all of your work on this. I also appreciate the time. Last week there was a letter sent very close to the actual decision, the item coming up, and I think that the additional time gave our hardworking department staff the chance to really engage with all the points that were raised. So I really appreciate, thank you to you, Marcia, for running our legislative hearings and my colleagues for supporting that time. Department staff like Bev Fair in Public Works, who personally put in tremendous time and energy to explore this issue and sort through every aspect of the situation with Wellington and others who are involved. And my office, as I mentioned, has been personally engaged and visited this site multiple times. And I want to make sure I can speak to this today because we as a council voted previously several months ago in favor of recognizing these boulders as a nuisance in the public right of way. I do want to acknowledge that in conversations with the property owners, they have pointed to points about the reality of the common right of way there that I understand, things like grass getting destroyed, things like pedestrian and bike pedestrian and passengers trying to travel on a part of a road that Energy Park Drive gets a lot of industrial and commercial shipping traffic, and it's not really like just a regular road like anywhere else, in that it's also coming off of the 280 connection, and then it's part of a neighborhood where there's a transition happening from industrial and commercial to kind of mixed residential and those uses still. So I just want to say, you know, I believe our vote today is to confirm the finding we already approved and to ensure the boulders are removed. But there is a general lived public policy and sort of resident impact goal that I think needs to be pursued, and continue to do that in partnership with Wellington, the property owners, the neighborhood community council, constituents who have reached out to me and said, you know, I still do worry about the general safety issues with what goes on this road. There's a gas station right there, so that's a lot of vehicle coming and going. So this is also my old neighborhood and place I lived for many years in our city. So I feel, you know, why talk so much about boulders at an intersection, but it is it is relevant to kind of what's going on. And I simply wanted to say that I acknowledge that, and that there are these challenges that we need to continue to address and that we will as a council office. I will be moving approval of the hearing officer's recommendation today. I just think it's important that we speak to broader issues that were raised, because while this is one specific segment of it, I don't think that it's enough to quit looking for solutions at this site. And I think that will continue to involve city departments and the property owner and the neighbors. So thank you. And I will be moving approval of the recommendation today.
All right, so Ms. Jalali moves approval. Any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, roll call.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted.
All right, and that brings us to the end of our agenda today. Does anyone have news from the wards or announcements they'd like to make before we go to our really last item on the agenda? Ms. Prince?
Thank you. This weekend, I know what I'm going to be doing. My 3.5-year-old great nephew is visiting, and we will be going to train days at the Union Depot. And I've got to share my screen because everyone will be able to tour this fabulous passenger rail train. Where is it? Darn it. Let me just see. Well, it's not there anymore. Oh, anyway, train days, you'll have a great opportunity to actually go on passenger trains and tour the depot and a whole bunch of cool stuff. And it's on both Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's sponsored by Ramsey County, and of course, our Twin Cities, Milwaukee, Chicago second train effort. So it's a very special opportunity. So be there, bring kids. It's a blast.
That's great. I will add to that. This is probably an activity that's more oriented towards kids or retired folks or people with different schedules than the 9 to 5. But tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m., the Como Park Zoo and Conservatory is holding the ribbon cutting ceremony to officially open the newest exhibit, Como Harbor. And for folks who have not had a chance to get a sneak peek, it is just fantastic. This is a wonderful place to see animals. I think we've talked about it here when we've passed funding, but this is a project that is a partnership with our state bonding, our DFL, I'm sorry, our St. Paul delegation, our delegation worked hard to get this funding for us and in partnership with folks all across the state of Minnesota who are invested in the zoo as well as Friends of Como, and it is just fantastic. So tomorrow is the ribbon cutting at 10 o'clock, but it's not going anywhere. So if you can't make it tomorrow, just make sure that you find your way to the zoo and conservatory this summer. It is a huge improvement and a wonderful place to watch the shows and just see animals in their habitat. So any other announcements or news from the wards? Jane, your hand, oh, there it goes. All right. Maybe there's just one more.
Well, actually, I just want to share this screen if I could, because this train is so cool. Okay, let me see.
This better be the coolest train ever, Counselor.
I'm
just kidding. I'm excited.
Oh, that's cool.
That is really cool.
Look at the inside.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Is that not spectacular?
That was worth it.
Absolutely, it will be worth it. So thank you for indulging me.
No, that is super cool. It has like a superhero vibe. That's awesome. And I'm surprised we haven't been more like, maybe that's our charge to everybody. Use your screen share during our news from the wards and beyond, because that is a nice visual aid. I could have done the same. And I didn't. So thanks for leading on that. And I'll do my best to get a screen to share next time. But if nobody else has news from the ward or updates, we will call ourselves adjourned for today. Thank you, folks. Another big day.
Thank you.